G'day ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. I am of course Akiaphlos, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Path of Champions in Legends of Runeterra. We're going to be doing something a little bit different today. We are going to be taking a look at the POC of course, but we're going to be taking a look at a specific battle in the POC, more specifically in the Aurelion Sol path. It's going to be against the Duplicate Zed. So I actually covered this video 2 days ago where I shared my experience as well as my thoughts on why the Zed battle is unwinnable, and one of you guys actually came forward with a comment informing me that I could have not lost that battle had I played certain things differently. And I fully agree with you, which was why I decided to not release this video, the original video, based on the belief that I simply wasn't playing well or simply wasn't aware of certain things in that particular battle. So what happened was yesterday, another comment left by one of you guys here on the channel actually alerted me and made me aware of something, and I also fully agree with you on that point. So that's why I've resurrected this video, because your point actually makes so much sense, as well as the earlier comment. And what I like to do is I actually like to cover both of those aspects in this video, as well as pertain to my original intention of this Zed video, where I explain why it's unwinnable. I think it makes sense. Alright, so what are we gonna cover today? So it's gonna be a really short video. I'll try to make it as short as I can. We'll be covering the reasons why I think the Zed battle is unwinnable, and I would also like to cover what I should have done into the Zed battle while I was using the Vayne. Alright, so before we get into it, bear in mind that this only applies to a Zed battle which occurs after the second mini-boss, where every single enemy starts with 3 mana. It's also only applicable to a Zed battle where the Zed gets the attack token. Now I know you might be thinking, what are the odds of this exact situation occurring? Let me assure you, it occurs quite often. For those of you who have played Path of Champions quite frequently, you'll know that facing a Zed after taking on that second mini-boss is not a rare occurrence. It is fairly common, as well as the Zed getting the attack token not once but twice, because the first time you're probably gonna die. So you might be thinking, what are the odds of the Zed getting the attack token twice? You might be thinking it's really slim. Well, it happened to me, and I'm about to show you in this video. Alright, so without further ado, let's go ahead and get this video started. Now the first thing I want to do is, like I said, I want to explain first and foremost what I should have done into the battle against the Zed with the Vayne, and what I should not have done essentially. Okay, so let's quickly just skip towards the Vayne battle itself. I am just gonna skip everything here. I am gonna go ahead and head towards about here where the battle has already taken place and the attack has already been declared. So as you can see, I blocked the 2 Zeds here, as well as the 2 living shadows. Now actually, before we do all this, I forgot, I probably should have done this right off the bat. What I need to do first is I need to explain what are the rules of this particular adventure, because I am aware some of you out there who are watching may not have played Legends of Runeterra, some of you may not played Path of Champions, some of you might not even know what's going on in the Path of Champions. So I'm just going to quickly explain and talk you through what's going on here. So let's quickly go forward in time actually, because that's the only way I could explain it. Alright, so you can see there's a couple of powers here, the enemy powers. Now as we all know, the Path of Champions operates based on powers that are given to each run. So the Aurelion Sol path, or the Aurelion Sol adventure rather, which is what we're attempting here, has the signature power of Legendary Climb. It's a little bit blurry here. I'll try to enlarge it and show it to you guys. When the foe summons a champion or levels up, double its stats. So basically this will mean that whenever the Zed is summoned, because the Zed is a champion, or the Zed levels up, his stats get doubled. Blade in the Darkness round end. If the player's Nexus took damage this round, the foe's strongest unit strikes it. So this power is unique to the Zed battle alone. As we all know, if you've played the Aurelion Sol battle, each champion has a unique power combined with the Aurelion Sol signature power, which will basically give a combo of its own. Basically, whatever unit damages our Nexus, the strongest unit of the enemy will strike the Nexus as well before the round ends. Alright, and the third power, which is the duplicate here, a legendary power, is pretty much a standard power, a standard legendary power that not only the AI will have, but as the player you can also pick up in the Path of Champions. The foe copies the first card they play each turn, which is why we have a duplicate Zed here, because Zed is the first card that is being played in this turn 1. Alright, so now some of you who are really good with mathematics, you are probably wondering, how the hell did the Zed get to a 2218 or an 1119? Yes, we know that the stats are doubled, so this 11.9 to a 22.18 makes sense, but you'll be wondering where the hell did the extra stats come from, because the Zed is a 3-2. If you double that, that should be a 6-4. Well, the answer to that is quite simple. If I actually go back in time, I believe there's a brief glimpse of the Phage here, if I could show you, of course. Let me just quickly go back a little bit more. Alright, so as you can see here, there is a rare item on the Zed, which is called a Phage. A Phage will basically give the unit a +2/+2 stat, which will bring the Zed to a 5-4. And again, I come back to the point where there is a, if we could just fast forward one more time, come back to the point of the legendary climb here. That 5-4 will go up to a 10-8, and once the Zed levels up, he gets a 11-9, and once he does level up, his stats gets doubled again and he goes to a 22-18. So that's how, for those of you who are not familiar with the Path of Champions or Legends of Runeterra, that's how this essentially got to a 22-18. Alright, and now that you are familiar with what's going on in the battle as well as the stats of the Zed here, I want you to watch this from the beginning. This is a two-part video, by the way. I have a second retry run that is also in this video. Basically what I've done is I've isolated this segment from my original Vayne run here on the channel because I just want to highlight this potential problem here in the game. So what I'd like to do is I'd actually like to start all the way back from the beginning. We're gonna watch the first battle first, which I'm gonna call Exhibit A, and once we're done with Exhibit A and I presented some potential arguments that you may make as well as counter arguments on my part, we're gonna watch Exhibit B together and then we'll see what we can analyze from there. Alright, so let's go ahead and just watch Exhibit A first. Oh no, why the hell does it have the attack token? This could be the one thing that contributes to our downfall. Duplicate Zed with the attack token is probably the worst thing to face, period. Whatever champion that you use in the assault, because that Zed's gonna strike, it's just gonna deal Nexus damage. I just hope that we don't have to, surrender and retry again, because this is really problematic. I think if there's one thing that needs to be addressed in the Aurelion Sol run, it's probably the Duplicate Zed, but that's probably just my opinion. Alright, so we have a Darius and a Golden Spat. We don't really need that many Golden Spats because we are generating it. So we're gonna reroll this, and we don't need the kind-hearted Recruit because it's kind of expensive. We need cheap units to potentially just stall out the Zed here. This Vayne is, I can't see the health. This is another thing that I hope the game addresses. Certain times the items are blocking the health stat and whatnot. Well, you could of course calculate it manually, but I don't think everyone remembers the base stat of every champion here. Alright, so what I think I'm gonna do is I might just go ahead and drop a Faithful Wolf Dog here, just to block the two Zeds here. Oh, this is 30 damage, right? Yeah, this is kind of bad because, we need to 20, 35, 10, 10. Oh, this is 30 damage. We're gonna commit it, but this is 30 damage here. You'll see why it's 30. Oh my god, it's not even 30 because the Zed levels up here, it's just gonna immediately kill. Yeah, this is the one thing that I think really needs to be addressed in the ASOL battle. Because if the Zed gets the attack token with a duplicate, it's just unplayable. You can't do anything. You cannot respond to it. Because the Zed here is just going to attack with the, the Plane of Darkness here. It's just going to strike the Nexus. Right, we're going to have to surrender here because we can't do anything. You know what? I'll just let it commit just to, proof of concept, just to show you what's going to happen. For those of you who are new, of course. Alright, so as you can clearly see, I lost that battle there. Now let's go ahead and head back to this point here. I'm just gonna seek this, where is it? Alright, this is what I'm looking for. Okay, so I actually forgot to also explain this early on in the introduction. For those of you who are new to Path of Champions or Legends of Runeterra in general, basically Zed here will level up once he himself has struck or two other shadows have struck. So basically these two shadows that he generates here, once both of them has struck or either himself and one of these shadows struck, he will basically level up. So off of that point, let's go ahead and talk about what I should have done here. Now in order to avoid that Zed from leveling up into a level 22, as you can see from here, what I should have done is essentially put these two units here to block these two shadows. Because I come back to the point again, the keyword here is really important. Zed himself as well as one or more shadows must strike. So essentially, we can potentially block both of these shadows. Z1 will strike, Z2 will strike, and it still won't count as a level up. Because again, like I said, Zed himself, that copy of Zed, that specific copy of Zed, plus the extra shadows must strike. So that means Z1 and at least one of these two shadows must strike. Z2 and one of these two shadows must strike. Either Zs and one of these two shadows, essentially. Hopefully that makes sense. So if I were to block both of these shadows, we would have prevented the level up here from occurring, and potentially we could have survived one extra round. Now, with that out of the way, with what I should have done out of the way, let's go ahead and get into how it is still a problem. So I've come up with 5 arguments as well as 5 counter arguments as to why this particular Z battle is practically unwinnable, and we're gonna go through each one of them in detail and in depth. So let's go ahead and kick things off with the first point. Now, the first argument and counter argument is gonna be the base one for this entire video, and that argument is basically the amount of units we have attained through powers. And what do I mean here is essentially, if you guys have played the Path of Champions and if you are familiar with the Path of Champions, you will know that there is a possibility to pick up a power which will essentially summon an extra unit on the board. So as you can see here, this is turn 1, even though we have 3 mana. I believe if I just rewind a little bit just to show you, we are still at turn 1. Right after the mulligan, 3 mana. So the reason why I got 3 mana, for those of you who are new to Path of Champions, of course, is that there is a power to pick up an extra mana gem. That's why we get to start with 3 mana. The AI usually starts at 3 mana after the, the second mini-boss, which I will also get to in a second later on into the video, during the part and segment, how to potentially fix this problem. But yeah, coming back to the point at hand, how the hell did I get this extra unit here? So, like I said, there is a possibility to pick up a power which will award us an extra unit upon game start. And as you can see here, I had the extra unit, which is the 3-1 elusive here, the Sting Officer. So this is the baseline of the whole argument, which is basically... So this is the spinal cord, if you will, the spinal vertebrae, or the spinal column, whatever you like to call it, of the entire argument, the backbone of the entire argument, if you will. I was lucky enough to get an extra unit here, which was why I was able to block 2 units. And I probably should have blocked the 2 living shadows like I mentioned earlier, but I went with the 2 Zs. But anyway, I was lucky enough to get the extra unit here. Some of you might not be that lucky. So the problem with this really is that if you don't have that extra unit, this extra unit that I have here, you are not going to be able to block the 2 shadows here. And if you can't block the 2 shadows, one of them's going to strike, one of the Z's going to level up, and you're still going to result in a loss anyway, because this is 10, this is 10, one of the shadow strikes, it's going to be 10, that's 30 damage. You're going to survive on 5. When the round ends, that Z is going to strike for level 22, as we all saw earlier, so that's going to net you a total of 52 damage onto the Nexus. This is really problematic, because there is no way to get your health above 52, because as we all know, if you have played the Path of Champions, you will know that the maximum amount of health you can get is 40 at level 28. So the question becomes a really simple question. Where the hell are you going to get the extra 12 health? Or where the hell are you going to get the extra 15 health or 20 health in order to prevent this particular attack? Impossible. Now, the main argument that you will make here is, okay, if that's the case, get powers that will essentially give you units. Alright, so as we all know, there are a lot of powers in the Path of Champions. How sure are you that you are guaranteed to get this particular power which will essentially summon units? To my knowledge, there is only a couple or handful of powers that will summon units. One of it is probably the round start get a Poro, that's an epic power. The summon is Sting Officer, which is a rare, which is what I have here. Summon is Sparring Student, which is a common. Summon 2 Arm Gear Hits, which is also a rare, and summon 2 Vanguard Lookouts, which is also a rare as well. So basically there are 5 powers in total which will essentially summon stuff on the turn 1. So if you are unlucky enough to not get any of these powers from the, well, vast library of powers that the Path of Champions has to offer, you are pretty much screwed for this particular adventure. And besides, if you guys have also played Path of Champions, and more specifically the Aurelion Soul Battle, you will know that it is not a guaranteed thing to face up against a Z in the encounter. So you could argue just pick up that power nonetheless, but in my opinion, if you have to pick up one specific power in fear of getting a battle that you are not guaranteed to get into the Path of Champions, I think that's really poor game design in my opinion. Alright, so now that we've covered and established that summoning units is a thing, let's go ahead and take a look at the other avenue that will also summon units onto the board. So some of you right now will be thinking about a spell that will actually summon 3 units right off the bat. So that is the Haunting Spirit. Now I cannot remember the name of that spell, but what's gonna happen is that it's gonna summon 3 ephemeral units onto the board. As usual, I will have the card shown onto your screen right here, and basically it's a 2-cost slow spell and it will summon 3 ephemeral units. Okay, so let me present the scenario to you. There are 1,316 cards in the game. This is collective. This includes spells, units, landmarks, equipments, and I believe the champions as well. Now this number was taken from Mobalytics. I'm not simply throwing numbers around. You can potentially go there and check it out yourself. And basically what I'm trying to point out here is that we're aiming for that one particular spell. 1 out of 1316. If my math is correct in percentage, that's around 0.07%, which is really low in my opinion. Now, I do understand that we are going to be getting a lot of rewards in the Path of Champions. Of course, there is a couple of spell nodes as well as shop nodes along the way, but still, the odds of getting that is really slim. You must remember, every shop node only gives you 6 cards to purchase from. Every reward gives you only 3 cards to select from. And even if we count the fact that we are going to be able to get a card after every battle in the Path of Champions, in the Aurelion Sol, of course, it's still a really slim percentage, because you must remember 0.07 is gonna be collectively, and even if you have already picked up a card, you know, from the previous node, it still can show up later, but potentially giving you an extra item on it, not a new card entirely. So basically, the odds of getting that one single card is practically really slim. Now you might be wondering, there should be more cards that will actually summon more units onto the board. You are correct, there's actually 2 from what I found, and both of them are kinda expensive. So one of them actually summons 3 spiderlings here and gives them a +1/+0. Again, I cannot remember the name of the spell, but I do remember that it is a 5-cost spell from the Shadow Owls. Now, we're gonna be starting at 2 mana on average, if you guys don't have the extra mana gem in the Path of Champions, of course. For in my case, we have the extra mana gem, so 3 mana. So assuming that we don't have the 3 mana and we start at 2 mana, right? This is pretty much going back to the basics if you are kinda unlucky, if you will, with the powers and whatnot. So that spell is gonna cost 5 mana, and obviously we cannot play that on the turn 1. So what about the other spell? The other spell is a 7-cost Emperor's Divide that will essentially summon 6 Sand Soldiers. I don't think I really need to say much about this, because if we already can't play a 5 mana spell, we definitely can play a 7 mana spell. Alright, so now on to point number 3. Some of you might be wondering, well, there might be some way of crowd control that could eventually prevent the units from attacking. You could argue that there is a round start stun power as well as a round start frostbite power in the Path of Champions. Now you are correct, there is a stun power and a frostbite power. However, both of those are useless into this particular Zed battle, and here's why. Now bear in mind, this argument only works if the Zed starts with the attack token. If you are lucky enough to get the attack token, you're perfectly fine. So if the Zed starts with the attack token, and even if you have the stun or frostbite power, you are practically unable to take advantage of this. Why? Because the way the power works essentially is that it will trigger its effect first before the unit is summoned onto the board. So if I go ahead and rewind here, you can see the Zed gets summoned. I must bear in mind that I also have the stun power for this particular adventure. In fact, I'm going to pull up a screenshot showing you that I have 2 stun powers for this particular adventure with the Vayne. And if you guys want further proof, you can potentially check out the Vayne run itself. I had the stun power on, I believe, the first power node when we first entered this adventure. And I believe we picked up a second one after, you know, beating the second mini-boss, if I'm not mistaken. So essentially, I had 2 stun powers and we couldn't take advantage of that. Now I'm gonna go ahead and head back to the beginning here, and I'm just gonna slowly fast forward so that you guys can see what happens. Alright, so this is where the game has started, and it's usually at this point the stun will connect. Now if we wait for the Poros to load in, so if you focus on the enemy side, that Zed will come on here and it does not get stunned. The reason for this is quite simply because I come back to the point of the way the power works. Round start, stun the strongest enemy, it triggers upon round start. So basically, when the round starts, which is of course round 1 right now, there is no units on the board, and basically there is no units to stun. So that means the Zed will come on, effectively avoiding the stun and able to still deal damage. Now this works the same way with the Frostbite, because both of which are practically identical. The only difference is that the effect is a Frostbite and the other one is a stun. So the only way to effectively capitalize on this power is to have the attack token. And once again, I think in my opinion, this is rather poor game design, because, you know, if you don't get the attack token, you're gonna instantly lose the game, which I don't think is fair in my opinion. Alright, so moving on to the next point, which is also gonna stem from the stun and frostbite theory here, or the stun and frostbite ideology here, if you will. So as we all know, there are stuns and frostbite cards in the game, and you might be arguing here, why not just pick up a stun and a frostbite card? Fair enough. So there are 4 spells here in total, and I have shown a 3-cost spell. That's because I have the 3 mana, which you could argue is really subjective, because after all, not everyone's lucky enough to get 3 mana, but it's not gonna matter anyways after I've explained it. But for the sake of being a little bit more lenient, I am going to add this 3-cost spell here. But if I were to be more strict, this 3-cost spell shouldn't even be in this list. But anyway, let's come back to the task at hand. I digress. Alright, so we have the 1-cost Guile, the 1-cost Brittle Steel, the 2-cost Steel Tempest, and the 3-cost Flash Freeze. Let's talk about the 1-cost spells first. So the 1-cost Brittle Steel is gonna be an immediate omission for me because as you can see, the effect here really is kinda useless. Frostbite enemies with 3 or less health. So as we all know, the Zed is gonna be coming on at a 10-8. So practically this spell is right off the bat useless. That's why we're just gonna omit it here. That means the only option we have left in terms of 1-cost spells is gonna be the Gale. Now as we all know, the Gale is a slow spell here, which means the AI will have a chance to react. So essentially we can only cast 1 Gale, and if we're somehow lucky enough to get 2, it's still gonna be useless because we can only cast 1, which means we have to stun either one of the Zeds, which will allow the other Zed to attack, and essentially it will still deal damage, which isn't too great. So 10 from the Zed, 10 from the Living Shadow, that's 20, the Zed levels up 22, 20 plus 22, that's 42 damage in total. You still lose because again, like I said, maximum health of the Nexus is 40 even if you reach level 28. Now, on to the next spells. Alright, so let's talk about the Flash Freeze first. This is a 3 mana spell. So I'm lucky enough, again like I said, to have 3 mana because I picked up a mana gem. But some of you might not be so lucky, which means you will not have the mana gem. You might not even have cost reduction, and cost reduction should be fairly unreliable because sometimes cost reduction reduces the cost of the cards that you do not need. Alright, so say for the sake if we do even have 3 mana, right? It's still the same like the stun. We can only play it one time because of its expensive cost, and essentially you're not going to be able to nullify the other Zed. It's still going to deal damage, it's still going to be 42 damage onto your Nexus. And for that reason alone, I am just going to immediately omit this Flash Freeze here. So moving on onto the Steel Tempest. This is a 2-cost stun spell, which in my opinion is just as bad because essentially we need to have the AI attack first. Now under normal circumstances where you only have 2 mana, this is a really bad spell because essentially it's doing the same thing as having 1 unit to block one of the 4 Zeds and there's units there. So assuming if I were to stun, if I just quickly bring you back to the attack token here, there we go. Alright, assuming I were to stun, let's pretend this is blank over here. If assuming I were to stun one of the 2 Living Shadows, the other Living Shadow is gonna attack, the Zed will still level up, and that will be 10 plus 10 plus 10, that's 30. That leveled up Zed will strike, that's 22. 30 plus 22, that's 52 damage onto your Nexus. You're still gonna lose. So in my opinion, there is really no consistent or reliable way to stop the Zed, be it with powers or with cards, aside from praying that the Zed here doesn't start with the attack token, which is what I got in this first bout. Alright, so let's go ahead and take a look at Exhibit B, which is the second retry. I did not have better fortunes in that one because again the Zed started with the attack token, but I would like to go ahead and show you that because that will coincide with my third point here. Alright, so let's go ahead and head to the third battle. I'm gonna head to the start of the third battle if we can, of course. Alright, there we go. So I want you guys to observe this one carefully again and let's see what happens. You have gotta be shitting me right now. You have gotta be shitting me right here. Jesus Christ. Oh my god. We're gonna reroll here, but it's gonna be pointless. That Zed's gonna come on, it's gonna attack, it's gonna win again. This is unplayable. Duplicate Zed with the attack token. Absolutely unplayable. Alright, so we're just gonna resolve here, I guess.
Those who kill innocents are no more than fiends.
They follow the master. Let's talk this out.
Well, guys, it's nice. This run was so good, but it all had to end because of the damn Duplicate Zed. All right, we're gonna commit this. These are the final moments of the run, and I will talk to you later. Alright, so let's quickly go ahead and skip back to this part here and I will talk you through what should have happened. Now, I made the same mistake like the first battle, which was not blocking the 2 ephemerals. The reason for that is because at the time of this recording, of course, I forgot how the Zed was supposed to work in terms of his level up, which was why I proceeded to block the Zeds again. But it wouldn't have mattered anyways because this is the second retry, and basically on the second retry we get less health, and because we do get less health, it's down to 19. These 2 Zeds will still attack. 10 plus 10, that's 20, and essentially we're still dealt enough damage managed to kill us here. Alright, so again, we got the attack token onto the Zed, which was kind of unfortunate, and it's basically how the Zed is guaranteed to win. But the point I want to make here essentially is regarding the free attack here. Free attacks and rallies, which is going to be the fifth and final argument of this video. Now, if we actually just go ahead and rewind back a little bit, you will notice that I played the Vayne here, which actually had a free attack. So this is going to apply for both the rallies and the free attacks as well. That's because you could argue, why not you just attack immediately before the Zed attacks? And as you can see here, I did attack immediately before the Zed attack with the Vayne, in fact, with the free attack. The AI decided not to block because it knows it has the victory here if it doesn't block. So there's really no way around this particular battle because even if we attack before the Zed attacks, the AI is too smart for that. So that's basically the fifth point. It's a really short and a really brief one. Alright, so now on to the part where I think I know a way, or actually two ways to fix this. Now, I'm not really sure if this will be a really good way to fix this because I'm obviously not a game designer. So hopefully if anyone from Riot is watching this, potentially look into this. This could be something that might be worth looking into for the longevity of the game, if you will. So the way I would fix this essentially is if we are encountering the Zed past the second mini-boss, I will get to why past the second mini-boss later on in the next point. If we are facing the Zed past the second mini-boss, I think a reasonable way to fix this is to ensure that the player always starts with the attack token. Maybe hard code this into your programming or something. Again, I'm not really a tech person or a game designer, so I'm not really sure how these games are made, but I'm pretty sure there is a way to set that the player has, even if it's not a guaranteed start with the attack token, a much higher percentage of starting with the attack token compared to the Zed. I think that would be a fair advantage because as we've seen here, the Zed starts with the attack token, it is literally unplayable. Alright, so coming back to the second mini-boss point. Now, why have I pointed out and, emphasized on the second mini-boss point? Because if we encounter the Zed before the second mini-boss, essentially the Zed will not start with 2 mana. This third mana feature is only applicable to enemies that are after the second mini-boss. So essentially, if there is some way to hardlock the Zed from appearing after the second mini-boss, basically just guarantee that it will spawn before the second mini-boss, I think that would be a good way to circumvent this, because essentially, even if the AI starts with the attack token at 2 mana, it will not be able to summon the Zed, which will result in a much more fairer experience and a much more fairer game. Alright, so with all that being said, I think the most reliable strategy right now is to have a lot of units on the board. But again, like I said, not everyone is going to be lucky enough to pick up a power which will summon units onto the board, or a spell that will actually give you units onto the board. Now, you really need to rely on that one feature to stand a chance into a, well, let's be real here, a very, very one-sided battle. I think that's really poor game design, at least in my opinion. So, hopefully this can be remedied soon. I'm not really sure if I missed anything here. Knowing myself, I probably might have. So if any of you guys out there who are possibly more experienced or more well-versed in the game than me, feel free to leave your thoughts down below and potentially correct me if I made any mistakes in terms of the narration or explanation of this particular video. I welcome any suggestions and criticism. So thank you so much for watching, as well as watching this video. Thank you so much for watching this TED Talk most of all. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and if you did, consider leaving a like as well as subscribing to the channel. I really do appreciate your support here, but most importantly, it's so that you don't miss future episodes or uploads of Legends of Runeterra or Path of Champions content just like this one. And with that being said, this is Keflo signing off. Thank you so much for watching. Thanks for joining me as well. Hopefully I catch you guys in the next one. Goodbye.